We are back and live with my good buddy, Mr. David Duford. What is up, man? How are you?
I'm going to warn everybody here. I've got 16 kids running around me right now. So if you hear some background noise or some kid run through, just forgive me. We'll work through it together.
16 children. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
they're not mine, not all of them, just 4 of them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You got they have like a birthday party or something?
No, they're just hanging out. Just hanging out. That's it.
Cool, man. I love it. I love it. Well, for you guys that are joining us tonight, also if you lose me, David, just jump in. I'm having some internet issues, but I'm going to try to do my best. Tonight's topic is on 7-figure insurance agency building secrets revealed. My buddy Dave has been doing this for a long time at a very high level. Not when he first got in the business, right? But
No.
definitely now, which I'm sure he'll share a little bit. But I'm excited tonight. Well, David, I appreciate you being back. I know you're busy, but this is an important topic, and I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, you got it, man. That's why I'm here. Happy to help.
You want to jump in and take it away before I lose internet? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'll do. Let me start it this way. So I'm expecting about an hour with you guys today, maybe a little bit more depending on your questions. But if Cody goes, what I'd like you guys to do who are watching, might as well just start. So I like the way I like doing these type of calls is being more led by the viewer than by prepared speech or different topics. I'm most interested in hearing what you guys have questions about as far as agency building goes when it comes to how to recruit, how to train, how to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to run an agency while you still sell. So I want to leave a lot of this open-ended to you guys out there. So if you've got questions, go ahead and start putting them into the chat. I'll do a little introduction of myself in case you don't know who I am or watch my material. Of course, my name is David Duford. I've been in the final expense business since 2011, failed out of the business after a year, got away from fundamentals, came back after a little short time away with the conviction and promise to myself to do it right this time. And went full-time right as my wife was delivering our twin girls, Eve and Emily, and about a year later. And then in 2013, 2014, I began to start my agency, recruiting agents to sell final expense. And I've really just been doing the same stuff over and over for the past really like close to 10 years, recruiting slowly but surely. And I'm blessed and thankful now that I have not an enormous business. I'm not like the big 3-letter IMOs out there by any stretch, but I got a nice business kind of catered around kind of what my beliefs are of what a good agency should be. We really excel in the training and the support side, which I think is so desperately needed by agents. And I've just tried to carefully build my business along the way. And so I guess where we'll start here is probably the most oft question I get asked, and then I'll start asking or answering questions in the chat, is where do you find agents from? How do you find good agents, right? Those are kind of really 2 different questions, but let's kind of take this and run with it. So what I have done that's been so successful and personal experience as well is that I have used YouTube and social media almost exclusively, really up till about a year ago, in finding and sourcing not just only a volume of candidates, but also quality of candidates. A couple of things I want to encourage you guys out there, and I tell this to my organization team members that want to build themselves, is that YouTube is untapped. There are new people right now in our space coming up with brand new channels that have consistently put content out that are smaller in size, but do an amazing job at connecting with people and then turning that social media source, specifically YouTube is my focus, of course, into a dependable, consistent stream of new agent recruits. And what's cool about any social media is that it gives the opportunity to those people who follow what you do to get to know, like, and trust you before you can even talk to them, right? And Cody probably has the same thing that happens to him as well as me. Pick up the phone and talk to an agent. They're like, hey, man, I've been watching your videos for weeks, sometimes even years. I love what you're about. What can I do to move forward with you? Like, it's almost like an order taking situation. Like, I don't have to sell them on how great what we do is. They wait in line to do business with me. And it's an enviable thing to have. And it's absolutely worth your time to develop. And that's where I get predominantly most of my agents. I'll get into more detail if you guys would like about what we're trying and testing that's different. But one thing I would encourage all of you all out there is to utilize social media to build your presence nationally as an influencer and as an authority in your particular insurance sales space. I promise you, if you put good content out there that's designed to help people get better or answer the questions they have or make more sales, you will attract more and more people to you, because if it's this good and it's free, imagine what will, right? That's the kind of mindset, mentality, and outcome you'll have with a really good focused social media strategy. I will tell you this too, it takes probably 6 to 12 months easy before you really get any sort of traction on any kind of platform. So if you put a post out there or 2 or 4 inside of a month and all you get is hate, don't worry, that's normal. That's the vetting process, right? Every single person on some level goes through that. You have to stay committed to whatever particular social media strategy you pick. Which ones are best? I think you should use the one that you're most kind of, how do I say, have most affinity towards. For me, I've always been a YouTube person. That's the social media that I use the most. I've never been a big Facebook guy or Instagram guy, even though we do a little bit there now. But use the platform that you're most familiar with, you're most comfortable with in communicating. And I assure you, if you just put consistent content out there and keep an opportunity to help people and get results. Excuse me one second. Okay, good. We're still good on headphones. Perfect. Okay, cool. So continuing, and I can get into a lot more detail with that. You guys just let me know. Now I'm going to go down through the list here, and we're going to continue the process of kind of helping you guys answer questions. How do you keep new recruits engaged from the start? So thank you, Cody, for the question. So here's the thing. So much of the problems that you hear about agency building, the chargeback debt, the drama stuff, all the stuff that's a distraction from making money and making sales, a lot of that problem can be prevented if you have an upfront system to overcome the people who really shouldn't be in your agency. There's this mindset, this belief that is purported from the big MLMs out there that this business is truly for everybody. True. This business, look, I'm not built for basketball, right? I'm like 240 pounds, slow. I'm not going to dunk or do much anything. To tell me that I got some chance for NBA, maybe when I was young, but the likelihood is very low, right? Likewise, some people just aren't meant for sales. There is a particular disposition about being successful at sales that you have internally, I believe, that's very hard to change. It's a mindset thing that was developed as a young person into adolescence and then kind of sits and stays the same. We can influence factors around that person, like how well is their persuasion ability? How well is their ability to go out there and achieve goals? We can influence as a manager, but there are just some people who don't have the mindset and disposition for sales and to be successful at it. And the biggest advice that I could give you is in that engagement section. Engage with people who have the stuff already. Okay. Not that, I'm not saying just recruit people who are studs and we know they're going to make a lot of money. We don't ever really know that, but you need to come up with an objective system that will help you figure out if the candidate you're talking to has the capability, the past, the extracurricular activities, the background on their resume that would show you some evidence that they're actually going to perform. Okay. Otherwise, if you take on anybody with a pulse, you're liable to run into a bunch of everything. And that's part of the reason so many people fail out of this business, is because they weren't told the truth about what to expect. And they really didn't have the stuff to begin with. So one thing I'll add, and I'll keep going, and you guys keep asking questions. I appreciate it. One of the things that I absolutely recommend is to have an interview vetting process. Okay. If you go to my website, you can check out what it is. It's davidduford.com process. We are filtering out the leads, if you will, the agent leads that come in based off of that first step application process. If they fit the basic requirements of what we're looking for, they've got a budget for leads, or they've got a background in sales. There's different requirements that we have. Then we're testing this out. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm testing different things and trying things. But one thing that's been really well for us is we're using a sales assessment program called Sales Drive. You guys can check it out online. I think it's salesdrive.com. And we send them a sales assessment. It's like a 50-question test. It takes 20 minutes to complete. And it allows us to see how much what we call drive a candidate has. This is that inherent must-win competitive drive that the person just naturally has. They either have it or they don't. You can't teach somebody to have drive and the ability to go out there and grind it out. But we know as managers in this has helped us do is kind of thin the herd a little bit more of applicants and really only deal with those people that have the appropriate amount of drive that really is conducive for a hunter-based position like most insurance sales is. You may say there's maybe Medicare or ACA is more of a farming, but there is a hunting aspect to it too. And if they don't have that, again, your engagement level is just not going to be there. But if you have people who are engaged, if you have people that have drive, they are competitive, they want to be the best, they want to achieve the highest level, then they're going to be engaged in that process. They're going to be more coachable because they want to win. They have a desire to win, right? So hopefully you guys understand the underpinned importance of this. You have to vet your candidates up front. You have to get rid of this MLM. Come on in, and if you got a pulse or fog a mirror, you're in the club. That stuff doesn't work. It's damaging. It causes chargeback issues. It causes. Stay away from that. Get on the train of qualifying people and making sure the candidate you have is a good fit. And again, if you want me to talk more about the qualifiers we use as well, we can talk more about that. Okay, cool. Moving along here. Hey, Olga, how you doing? Thanks for being here. Any tips for recruiting healthcare workers into life and health insurance selling? Sure. So one strategy that you can use is an affinity approach to recruiting. And the affinity approach to recruiting is take somebody who has, or take yourself. What are the things you enjoy to do? What is your former career before you got into insurance? And then build a marketing messaging campaign, predominantly probably based on outbound, targeting those particular types of prospects. I'll give you an example. So we tested out a campaign a couple of months ago where we targeted people who were fitness enthusiasts, right? And so we went after particular enthusiasts, and then we targeted them with messages saying, hey, notice you're whatever. Are you open-minded to seeing changes in your job or something? It was very rough. It was a little better sounding than that, I assure you. And we tested that out. We got some interest from it. Wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But I think part of it was I picked the wrong affinity group. Like for me personally, I'm more of a jiu-jitsu guy. Like if I target a bunch of people who are following jiu-jitsu influencers, I can communicate with them because I have something in common with them. That's the idea behind affinity marketing. So if you're targeting, Olga, somebody who is an affinity marketer, or if you're affinity marketing people who are healthcare workers, then you know how hard it is to be a nurse or a healthcare worker, all the stuff that they've had to go through the last couple of years, being worked to death for 12-hour shifts, not getting the respect that they deserve, but that these healthcare workers are hard workers. You can speak their language. And my recommendation to give you kind of a strategy to use is think about somebody in your niche or I should say in nursing or healthcare workers that has a large following on LinkedIn, has a large following on Instagram, and then go find the followers of those people and then start a direct message campaign. You could say something as simple as saying, hey, notice you follow so-and-so healthcare influencer or company. I used to be in healthcare. It was great until it was just an enormous struggle and stress. I'm sure you can relate. Are you open-minded to different career options that would allow you to help people, but actually determine your own schedule and make good money? Let me know by replying, right? So very interesting, like you very, very basic approach. You indicate with them in the outbound message, hey, I saw you on X. Then you do your pitch, your 30-second elevator pitch, and then you close them. Would you like to learn more? Would you like to set up a call to discuss? And then you want your social media on that platform that you're doing to back up kind of your conversation points like, hey, I used to be in health care worker. I got out because of da. Now I found this new thing. Maybe get testimonials of people that were in that as well. But you want your social platform to be molded around that affinity group, because people who get these cold messages, these outbound cold messages, and be like, who is this person? They're gonna, and if they're not happy with their job, which 25% of people hate their job and would switch if they could, they're gonna creep on your profile and they're gonna check out to see what you're about, to see if you're legit, if you got some kind of background, what your story is, and you can start to develop a relationship that way, and at least begin the beginning conversations of how to recruit that particular affinity group. And guys, that works for anything. I mean, that's just a fundamental strategy. And again, the homework I would ask you guys to do is think of who your affinity group is. What sports do you enjoy? What sport were you a part of in high school or college? What do you love to do when you're not working, right? And then build a campaign around that. Find influencers. Instagram's probably the easiest place to do it. And then send 50 to 100 messages a day. It's pretty simple. Okay, let's keep going. Hey, Odette, there's an expo coming up in 2 weeks. I'm brand new agent. Do you think I should join the expo? To sell or to recruit? Now, to sell, sure. You know, again, think about the audience that's going to be at the expo so that you can present to them in a way that they'll be, was it like a women's expo, right? So maybe your messaging should be some more women-based, right? Whatever, you get the idea. If you're going there to recruit, now me personally, just my opinion, you can take it or leave it, it's up to you. I'm not a big advocate of new agents recruiting. I think it's a distraction from learning the skills to pay the bills, which is learning how to sell and running a sales and marketing system and getting some success there. That's at least what agency, the dig agency, my agents come on. My first order of business is, how can I get this agent to have the skill so they can go out there and make money without ever having to recruit or ever having to worry about trying to get somebody else to make money for them. And then over time, as that skill set's developed, then I think it's most prudent, because you've got something you can teach somebody, right? You've got wisdom and experience, and you're going to be able to convey that to somebody who would want a new career. And so I think, to me, waiting a little bit longer to getting into recruiting, yeah, it's like you slow down your business building, if you will, but I think you do it the right way. You learn how to crawl first before walking. And my opinion has always been, and it's just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth, the studs out there, the real good agents out there, you know, they can tell if you really don't know the business, and they're not going to stick around for long. And those guys are like your Pareto 20% that make 80% of your revenue. So I think it's worthy of yourself to like develop the skill set first before you start recruiting. All right. Hey, Cody, other Cody Millman. Definitely not for everyone. Do you find it beneficial recruiting currently active agents from other agencies? Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, you know, there's different opinions on this. I definitely do. A good chunk of our agents come from a lot of the 3-letter IMOs that are unhappy because they realize their commissions are low, or more likely they just weren't getting support. They have access to crummy leads. You get the idea, right? And so the way my agency has turned out is people find out about us many times after they've already gotten started, and they love the business, but they don't like their setup. And so they're attracted to what we do because of that. You know, hey, it's better over here because of better commissions, better support, career mindedness, you know, focusing on selling first and building, if you want to, long-term passive income products like Medicare, et cetera. You get the idea. So it naturally happens. Now, what are some bad things about recruiting agents from other agencies? You know, sometimes they come with bad habits, right? They were trained on somebody else's system, and now you have to kind of like clear the brain of whatever they learned and start them from scratch. So, you know, it's easier to take an agent away from another agency that's newer in some sense, versus somebody who's been doing it a long time. Another thing you got to worry about are the agent flip-floppers, agency flip-floppers. So I had an agent once who, if he would just have focused, he would have had so much better results. But, you know, there's that thing that you either have or you don't. He had 17 years of experience selling insurance, but he never made it past 1 year of selling one product and focusing on it. So he never really advanced agent. He was just intermediate to beginner. And his problem was mindset. He would just, as soon as he ran into difficulty selling whatever it was, be it final expense, he switched to Medicare, then he switched to mortgage protection, then he switched to IULs or whatever, right? And so the guy never made it, right? And so the point being is sometimes you've got to be careful not to get the guy who flips from one company to another. That tends to be a behavior pattern that indicates an underlying problem with commitment. And sometimes it's youthful, it's youth issues, but many times it's just a personality issue. Not always. Some people, they flip because they finally, find an agency that does what they say they're going to do. I flipped a couple of times in my first couple of years, and then I've been with the same upline for, probably 8 years now. So yeah, it just depends, and you just got to be careful of that. Now, on the flip side, I like working with brand new agents the most, although I'll be happy to work with experienced agents. I like brand new agents because I don't need an agent, I need somebody in my team that already has sales experience, much less insurance experience. I just need somebody who has the character traits that are inherently in that person, that when given the right opportunity, that they'll run with it, right? So for me, I love working with new agents. You got to start from scratch, but if you have a program that really trains them on what it is that you need and they're coachable, it's in some ways it's a lot easier that way. And invariably, what you're going to have happen anyway is because the failure rate of this business is so high, you're just going to have anyway a lot of new agents coming in. If you position yourself as, we're the place for experienced agents, well, there's not a lot of them because, 92% of people fail after all. And a lot of the people who are doing really well in the business aren't for sale, right? So a lot of the experienced agents, they have a longer sales cycle. I'm trying to think of an example of one guy that he's on social media. He's got a YouTube channel. I won't say his name, but he's expressed interest in moving, but he can't because he's with one of these 3-letter IMOs and there's a lot at stake. And his horizon to move is months, if not years. That's my opinion. And so one strategy is if you go after those experienced agents, you got to build a relationship with them, because that's what really experienced agents are more interested in. They don't necessarily need the motivation and rah-rah. They just need a stable platform with somebody they can wholeheartedly 100% trust. And a lot of that, if you want the experienced agents, you got to have time on task, you got to have longevity. I think you got to have experience too. And you got to be trustworthy, because it is ultimately a relationship business. But it's hard to find a lot of those guys. It's hard to build an agency around just experienced guys. It's better, in my opinion, just to accept that you're going to have a lot of new guys and you put a training program together to help them. Think of all the agencies that are huge, recruited a ton of people. They don't necessarily go after experienced agents. They're looking for new people all the time. So there's probably something to it. All right. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for being here. Thoughts on targeting current policy owners as a sales focus for IMO? So you mean like from an IMO perspective, like people already have coverage and then trying to sell more? I mean, yeah, absolutely. As the old saying in sales is, or insurance sales is, the best person to sell policy to is the one who already has it, right? You don't have to sell them on coming up with the money. They already are and already have. That means they're believers that take action, not talkers that talk the walk but never walk the walk. My question would be, where would you find that list of people who already own coverage, right? And it's a little bit more difficult to get in the home of somebody who already has coverage. Not impossible at all, of course, but there's going to be resistance. So you got to make sure you train them well on objection handling, overcoming, right? And there are agents, at least in my final expense, their whole business model is I just want to get in front of as many people as I can that have coverage and show them how mine's better. And many times when you replace that coverage, especially if it's, what they have is very inferior, it tends to stick better. People more appreciative of it, a lot more sales opportunities than if you just go after people who don't have coverage, right? Hey, Mark. And again, if you guys are jumping in late, greetings and salutations, Dave Duford here. I'm doing an open mic Q&A on agency building. I've got topics to discuss, but I'd rather hear your questions because you guys are the ones that are taking time out of your busy day. I appreciate it. Cody does too. And I want to hear what you guys have questions about, so that I can help you out the most versus me just lecturing on something that may not be interesting to you. Okay. What do you use to market clients for annuity sales? Hey, Mark, thanks for the question. So what we do, again, this is what we do. It's not the thing, it's a thing. What we do is we cross-sell annuities to who we sell final expense and Medicare to. And sometimes a lot of our agents come in and they know of somebody who has some money to move and they make a sale that way. We don't have an annuity lead system. I'm sure Cody's, I don't know if Cody has one, but we have tried them in the past. And the funny thing about annuities is that you either are paying nothing for them because you got an awesome referral system or a great cross-sell system, or you're paying $400 or $500 for some kind of lunch and learn, sit down and, feed people type of thing. And your lead cost is $400 to $500, per person who shows up. There's not a lot of middle room or middle ground, like a $50 or $100 lead. So it's a lot harder to run, in my opinion. So what we've committed to is just, we teach agents what questions to ask. And when you're talking to people who are older and are of even like blue collar income, they're going to have a little bit of money somewhere. A lot of them do, more than you think. And if you know what unearth it, there's a lot of sales to be made there. Again, same concept as earlier. The people who bought an annuity thought it was great, but they got some, terrible deal and never really looked at it again. Most of our clients don't. But when you show them what's possible and how interest rates would be better, for example, there's opportunities to replace those annuities and help them out better, versus just talking to people who think they want an annuity. There's a million people after those prospects. That's a very competitive pool, and it's a very expensive lead source. We like the idea of going after people who don't know they need us, but find out about it through a presentation of something else like final expense. Okay. Oh, Cody, step right in. Thanks, Cody. All right. Factory reset them. Yeah. Sometimes when you hit the factory reset button, it doesn't work on these agents, as much as you want to. Sometimes they take those old habits with them to the next agency and to the next and the next. I will say this. Let me add this too. I think this is important. I believe, and I've been doing this 10 years recruiting agents. If you're going to sell insurance, and if you've got a proper setup to train, a script, and you've got the drive and the desire to be successful, you should be making money in your second week after you're licensed, after you've been appointed, or sooner. I think this idea of, well, I'm going to give this agent like 2 months to get their act together is nonsense. You're going to spend a lot of money and waste a lot of time on an agent that just ain't cut for it. So we incorporated this year, like in that first week of business, in most cases, there are some exceptions, first to second week of business, for running leads over the phone, selling final expense or in person. If you're not making a sale, especially after that second week, it's probably not for you. It probably isn't right for you. And making sales in that first week, if not the first day on the phone or in the field. And, some don't, and then they do later, and that's fine, like within the next week or two. But 3, 4 weeks later, training a person, and they're not making sales, they may not be cut out for this business, right? So I want a fast recruit, train, keep, or fire cycle, right? You need to let these people go if they're really, really trying, and that's another issue. And if they're not getting results, you need to get rid of them. You keeping them on, hoping they'll turn around. You can try it. I have. And my conclusion is it ain't worth it. And that's the other thing. If you instill in your agents, hey, this is the expectation. You get the work, you put a ton of time in this thing, and you're going to make sales in that first week, maybe second week. But if by the end of the second week, if you're really doing the whole thing and you ain't making sales, I'm going to let you. Does that make sense? No hard feelings. Because this is what this is a pure performance-based business, ladies and gentlemen. It's not that difficult. I mean, maybe you could argue certain more technical products are, but for a life product, it's like, come on, let's go make some sales or leave, find another agent. Do you delegate recruiting to a recruiter? I do now. I used to not to, up to about a year ago. I used to do it all. And then I finally hired people, which, I'm kind of late to the show on some things. Like my biggest goal in this business was to make $500,000 a year net income and not have any employees. And the problem with that is you're doing everything. You don't get to get time off. If I got 15 agent, recruiting calls the week of my vacation, I'm not on vacation anymore, right? So I went through the cycle of recruiting people as employees. And one of my first responsible for the recruiting, Marty, who's with us still. And it's been wonderful. You just train people on the skill set you have and duplicate yourself in them. And then what you get to do as a business owner, Cody, I'm sure can relate. You now get to free up your mind for the business-oriented stuff, the 2 or 3 things that really matter the most to scale your business to the next level. Because if you're constantly in your business, constantly doing everything, the training, the support, taking the phone calls, the recruiting, all of that stuff, you're never going to have the time and the space for much else outside of work, but just as importantly, for the core activities that make it or break it for you. Okay. So yes, delegate. Recruiting is one of the things you need to delegate. And well, what if they recruit a bad guy? Well, come up with an objective meaning like come up with a system, like a scorecard applicant, right? Don't just leave it up to the whims of the recruiter. Come up with a system, like score, like ask certain questions, then have the recruiter score on a scale of 1 to 5 how well they answered it, right? And define what each of those are before you actually, have the guy interview the candidate, right? And then you can come up with an objective score. It's just something off the top of my head you could do. And then you can come up with a grade, a pass or fail based on what you're seeing. And, versus like using your gut, this is part of the reason I use sales assessments, because sales assessments are great because they take out the gut feel, like, man, I really feel this guy's a good candidate. Well, newsflash, candidates lie to you. They don't tell you the truth. They tell you what you want to hear. And there's some people who are really good at interviewing and they're great. They sound like awesome candidates. And then they just get crushed at their first day or first week trying to sell anything. And you're like, well, that guy was awesome. What happened? He's just a good interviewer. And so I like the assessments, what we've done so far, because it just dismisses the BS component. You get a lot more objectivity on the core things that really make the difference of whether or not they're going to sell it. All right. Hey, Thomas, hopefully I like answering questions in detail, so I apologize if I go on and on. I'm going to get to all these questions, I promise. If we need to go late, that's fine with me. I know this is mainly for business owners, but as a new agent, what is the one thing you would say that is super important starting out a new insurance business? Pick one product to sell and pick a lead system, prospecting lead system. It can be purchase leads, cold calling, anything in between, and go all in on it, right? Don't try to be everything to everybody. Have like a bunch of different products. I'm the guy that sells you P&C, life. Much to know, right? Takes too long to get going and making money. Pick one thing you really like. Then once you pick that, then figure out what lead system is most appropriate. Sometimes it's the inverse. Maybe you don't want a cold call. And maybe some niche is more cold call oriented. Maybe you want to buy leads like final expense. Great. Now you can form fit the product to your prospecting desire. And then go all in on leads. Don't skimp on leads. Buy a lot of leads. And then time on task. Work a lot of hours. Work 50 plus hours if you're full-time, is what I would say. How does your delegation work? At the current moment, we have trainers who are responsible for training the agents, which I used to do. I pay them a salary plus bonus. So they're rewarded based off of their downlines production. So they're incentivized to train, take care of people, right? Make sure they're happy. I delegate some of the marketing activities and people, like coordinates with some of the outbound marketing stuff we're testing and trialing with. And then I've got a interview person who's just really completely responsible for interviewing agents, getting back to candidates, answering some basic contracting questions. And then I've got a part-time contracting person. So that as we grow, that's going to change, right? I envision as we start to get more agents and my trainers get busier, we're going to have to hire more trainers. Then we'll probably have to hire a VP of training, right? Of sales training, right? And marketing, right? So as we grow and the profit of the business grows and we can bring on more people, we're going to have more middle management and upper management positions to help service some of these other positions. Because it's like what happens when you delegate. Like you now have a whole new host of things that you now need to be responsible for. And then as that grows and your responsibility, how I see it. Delegation of non-money making activities. Well, everything makes money. I think this reminds me of a quote, I forget who said it, but everything is related to making money, in my opinion. The interview certainly is, the marketing is, the promotional stuff is, getting contracting done in a timely manner is. It's not directly related, but hey, if contracting doesn't get done and it takes weeks on end, I'll lose agents, right? So for me, everything's money making, right? There's a direct, you should drive everything towards the bottom line, right? There's no part of business, probably Dan Kennedy who said this. There's no part of business that, shouldn't have some sort of orientation and direct connection to the bottom line. If you don't think it is, then you're going to see cost creep out of it, and it's going to start sucking responsible for that, which is ultimately the performance of for the shareholders, meaning you, if you own the business. Hey, Ryan, what's up? Do you see agents having success building a business primarily on long-term care insurance? I've only known, and this, again, I'm a final expense guy, so, take it for what it's worth. I only know one agent that does long-term care hybrid policies and has their business based around that. My perception of long-term care, it's increasingly difficult to get approved. Now, I think some of the hybrid life insurance policies are a little bit better, but I think there's a niche for it. I mean, long-term care is expensive. A lot of people can't get covered for it. Underwriting is difficult. And it's something a lot of people ask about. I probably got in the field for final expense, asked about long-term care as much as got asked about medical. I think there's some juice in that squeeze or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then that's the other issue. I've had trouble finding a lead source. Yeah. And that's the problem. That's a problem with a lot of these elaborate products is they're great, but where do you find people to talk to? Because you can have a great product, but if you don't have a system to get in front of people, it's difficult. So I'm kind of a guy that starts with the marketing system first. Like what marketing system can I use to get in front of a lot of people? Direct mail or Facebook leads for final expense or Medicare or ACA. Then build your business serving those people, and then you might find those more exotic products like annuities or these products within those, right? Excuse me. If I make a cold call to the person and make a callback appointment with the info, does it work? I mean, there have been agents. AmeriLife built its agency early on. AmeriLife's a big player in the distribution of life insurance. They used to have, they probably still do have a whole call center of people that just dial and recruit contracts. So, they just dial the insurance agency list or agent list and hope for the best. I like to do it with a little more finesse. I'd rather put content out there. I'd rather cold DM people that I know follow a specific influencer. If I'm going to do any cold calling, I want to make sure I'm targeting a particular type of list. Maybe there's a particular company that a little bit about and their problems. I'd want to call those people because I could have a targeted message towards them. So just don't blanket, cold calls in. Make sure you're targeting a specific niche that actually, is resonate. You can build a message that's resonant to. That's fundamental, guys, no matter what it is you're doing. Hey, no. When would be the appropriate time to start hiring to build out your agency? So for me, if I'm doing everything, a year plus is what I would say. I didn't start recruiting till I was in like 2.5 years. Okay. Now, again, apologize. I have 16 kids in my house. So if you're screaming, it's just kind of part of the deal. Now, what we do in my agency, I've come up with this new concept of the problem with most recruiting is that you're responsible for most of the training, the onboarding. It's really up to you. And what happens is there's not a consistent experience between the recruiter from one sub agency and another, and the agents that get in, their results vary dramatically. And there's not a consistency in quality. And so what we've done recently is that our pitch to people who want to recruit agents is that everything else beyond recruiting, we are responsible for all of that. We vet the candidate. We interview the candidate. We ensure that they're a good match for what we've seen as evidence of potentially successful agents. We train the crap out of these people, right? On telesales or face-to-face. We provide free leads for them if necessary. And then all you have to worry about is just finding the candidates and then feeding them into our system. In most cases, they're directly to you, so they're your downline agent. And but you can rest assured our system is going to have a consistent outcome, much more so than most three-letter IMOs, and producing a quality agent that actually writes business and gets results. And so we're in the early phases of doing that. We've gotten a ton of positive response from it, because that's really the problem with these very large MLMs is there's no product control, there's no control or quality control of the output of what's in the experience to get success and see it quickly. So in that case, I say all this to do a little self-promotion, but also I don't mind if an agent recruits. Now, I'd caution them. I told an agent today, you still learn how to sell this stuff, get some success, because if you can communicate with them, hey, dude, I made $5,000 selling final expense over the phone last week. I've made more money last week than I have in the last month at my old job. This is awesome. Like, you're going to become a lot more relevant to that person and communicate than if you're just some guy saying, hey, I'm just calling you. I don't know anything about the business, but this is great over here, Duford Insurance Group, blah, blah, blah. So I prefer you to sell and be successful in some level of success, a couple months, and then start recruiting versus just straight out cold. Best advice to new agents just starting, focus on learning how to sell successfully. Put in your 50, 60 plus hours a week, have a lot of leads come in, and take the perspective of what's going to happen in the next 10 years, not what's going to happen the next week. The longer you can expand your horizon of expectations out of the business, what'll happen in this business is I've discovered the people who make it 5 years, 10 years, it's a very small group of people. We all start to get to know each other. But the real money for me personally in this business as an agent and as an agency builder came really 9 years into this. I mean, I started making money hand over fist 9 years in. I was doing okay about years 3 to 6, then 7, 8, but really 9 and 10. It's just been out of this world. And it's because I've diligently followed the fundamentals, going to sell for many years full time, putting agents in my car to train them and ride them all ride-alongs and answering their phone calls and helping them out, consistently delivering on that. I probably could have moved. Again, my primary concern was just doing it the quality way, right? Slow as it was the right way. So have a longer-term vision, very important. Any success stories operating with career coaches or independent HR consultants? None whatsoever. Olga, I don't know much about that. I had a guy that had a connection to the Army when people get out of the Army and looking for careers. Nothing really came from that, but I mean, those are great ideas. If you're looking for people that would source candidates, possibly that's a strategy. You're welcome, Thomas. The name of the sales assessment, Steve, was Sales Drive. I think it's like salesdrive.com. And it's a service where you just you send them a sales drive assessment, and then you get the assessment instantly, and then you get to see how the results are. There's an objective measurement of their drive, like the inherent characteristic, or they don't. And it's nice too because the test is interesting too. So it forces the candidate to make a decision or answer a question in a way that they really can't fake, because the test tests for inconsistency. So you'll get a question where it says, please, here's 3 questions or 3 statements. Please say what you're most like and what you're least like. And the question will be something like, I'm incredibly competitive. I love taking care of my clients. I'm a hard worker. It's very hard because a lot of people are like, well, I'm kind of like all of those. But now you're forced to make a decision to help the test distinguish, like, where do you really have your character traits at? Is it in the winning? Is it in the hardworking? Is it in client care, right? And what are you least like? So again, it helps you see between the lines that are hard to see in just a conversation. Anybody who interviews anybody knows that a lot of times it's just they're putting their best foot forward. They're not telling the complete truth. And these assessments help kind of clear some of the air on that. Hey, James, what is a great lead gen purchase company? Most are not very good. Cody Askins has leads, of course. Check out his leads. We actually, at my agency, we're moving to an internal model on leads. Again, this is a new development for us over the past year. We've developed a really good Facebook marketing system to where you pay a management fee every month. In exchange, you get your leads at cost. We have agents that have leads as low as $5 a lead. They're selling over the phone. Most of them are like $6 to $8 a lead, and they don't have to worry about self-generating leads, but they get the quality that comes from a well-managed, well-controlled self-generation type of lead strategy. And it's only for agents in our agency. We don't sell leads. I don't even make money off of the campaign as a service at a slight loss, but it's proven to be incredibly good for final expense face-to-face agent, especially final expense telesales agent. Hey, James. Enjoyed meeting you last week on Virtual Network. Yeah, thanks for being there. You got it. What is a great lead gen purchase company? I think I answered that just now. Thank you very much, Daniel. Do you hire out lead generation services for business and recruiting, or just one or the other? So the lead gen, we've got a third party setup with a very experienced marketer, social media marketer, who manages that for us. They get the benefit of making all the money on management fees. We do some affiliate work, so it's a good win-win for everybody. And for recruiting, we don't outsource that; we insource that. I want to control recruiting. Like, it is critical to find ideal avatar, meaning, what's their budget, what's their background, what's their experience or lack thereof, what's their character like. Like, you need to define that, and you need to be in control of that. I wouldn't outsource that. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it. Arif, if I could generate a lead with interested customers' information, get quotes, so does it work for your agency? I'll just move on. Troy, in this virtual world, describe how you work with people that are not local. Yeah. Hey, Troy, I've been doing this for virtual, remote way before COVID. I've been on the remote deal 2013. It just works. You don't need to have a physical location. And especially now, everybody wants to work remote. Nobody wants to go to an office. Like, everybody got a touch of the good life, like working from home. It's nice. And people want that. You have training curriculum. You have a website that contains that. You do coaching calls daily. It's the equivalent. Well, I wouldn't say it's equivalent, but it's pretty close to an in-person training. I do think in-person training, there's something about that provides a next level amount of value that you can't get from virtual training. I will admit that, but it's not so bad that it's going to prevent you from seeing success. Again, all of these 3-letter IMOs, including me, some of them have offices, I guess you could say, but a lot of the work and study and action takes place remotely. So people are equipped for it. You just have to set up a system, and you got to make sure the person's okay with it. Don't force feed somebody into this if they're not a good fit for it, right? Some people just need to be around somebody locally, but most people aren't like that in my experience. Thanks, Susan. Okay. What if you're starting to sell IUL starting out? I mean, that's fine with me. I don't know what your question is if you want to clarify. Do you have agents in others? I have agents nationally. I've had agents from Hawaii to Maine and everywhere in between. I mean, I've always recruited nationally. By recruiting nationally, you open up the pool of potential prospects tremendously. If you just restrict yourself to your general area, your metropolitan area, it's just a lot less people to find. It's not that it wouldn't work. I mean, there's some great career agencies that operate locally, but I prefer national. I think it works just fine. Do you charge for training resources? No, we don't. We do, however, require agents who are buying leads to place a lead deposit before they enroll with us. Now, here's why. I discovered last year that I could recruit a ton of agents that would say they'd buy leads, but they talk themselves out of it. Okay. And I realized, man, I'm wasting a lot of time with these people that won't even take they won't even do the first step. And so I came up with the idea, well, let's charge them a 100% refundable deposit, $500, and to require them to get it refunded to buy leads in the first 30 days. So people will work a lot harder to go from negative to zero than they'll work from 0 to 1 million. Okay. You should see how people work really hard when they're in debt or they owe the tax man money to just get back to zero. Okay. But there's a psychology with that, oh man, I'm out $500 if I don't go through the training, if I don't go through the process of buying leads, right? So it's a reinforcer of good behavior. And it also filters out the weak hands, because if they're already like, man, I don't want to spend $500 to do this, I don't know about this, I'd rather get rid of them now before we've even submitted contracts and got them in the training than 3 or 4 weeks and won't even pull the trigger on something as elementary as buying leads, right? So it's been huge for us. It's reduced our recruiting, but I don't care about gross volume of recruitment. I care about quality recruits. But the candidates that come in now are much better, and they're starting off behaviorally in the way I want them to, which is, how can I get my money back? Which is, we'll do the training and buy leads and then show that, and we'll give you money back. Now you might as well, you're that much closer to taking that leap of faith to go sell, right? You might as well, right? All right. Let's see here. What I mean, can you sell IUL start? Yeah, you sure can. Absolutely. IULs, there are plenty of organizations out there that do IULs. I think, doesn't PHP and WFG do IULs? I think they do it. There's other ones out there as well. But yeah, plenty of people start with IUL. I think IULs, actually, that's like the hot product right now. I've seen more talk about IULs now in the past like year and a half than I ever have in my entire career. They've been around for a while, but for whatever reason, there's just a lot of buzz about them. I think it'd be a great opportunity to sell IULs, because a lot of people are talking about them, kind of like front and center. Hey, Roxanne, and we're getting down to the end here, so let me know if you got questions, throw them out there. When recruiting nationally, do you need to be licensed in the same state or country? The same country. Well, if you're in America, you can't get somebody from Canada to sell unless they've gotten a license in the States, but that usually requires them to move here, have a residency, a couple other things, right? So I can't recruit internationally. As a resident of Tennessee, I can recruit anybody nationally, but in some cases, depending on the carrier and sometimes the state, yes, you are required to buy a non-resident license, okay? The good news is you can pick that up piecemeal as you recruit people. I wouldn't start off by saying, well, I got limited resources, let me spend $5,000 on licensing before I even recruit somebody. Pick it up as you go. That's what I did. Otherwise, you're spending your precious resources on things that don't necessarily yet matter. What moment or pivot turned you into a 7-figure business? I mean, I don't think there's some pivot point. I mean, I've just been doing what I do for years, there's been little refinements along the way. I really didn't do much different from about 13 to 19. I mean, I just, my YouTube channel got bigger. I just kept putting content out, kept training people. I kept making more money, kept making more sales, recruited some really good agents along the way. And moment I had. I think the closest thing I can say to an aha moment, but I hope I can look back in 5 years and say this was the aha moment. I think the closest thing I can say to an aha moment is realizing that I can't do it all. And although you can make a lot of money in this business and do it all, like, it's not always about the money. You need to come off some of that to build, and you got to have a platform and a foundation to scale your business, right? And if that platform is just you, then you aren't going to do very well scaling. And B, you really don't have a business. You just have a glorified job. And if you're interested in selling your business and you go to a private equity company, you're like, well, so tell me about your business. And you're like, well, I run everything. Like, they're not going to buy that. Because as soon as you leave and you're gone, you're in this position of who runs the ship. There's no platform. There's no foundation to it, right? So I would like to say that's my aha moment 5 years from now, when we're 3 or 4 times as big and crushing it. So, but we shall see. Fingers crossed. Hey, no, what are the realistic numbers new agents should be recommended to purchase week in, week out for making consistent? So for me, for final expense, 500 to 750 is bare minimum. Okay. You can, if you get with our Alpha Leads program, that would work. But you really need to be getting up to 1,000 plus. Here's why. There is safety in numbers. You ever heard of that? I think that's like a war battle thing, right? If I'm on the battlefield, I want to have, my bros around me, right? I don't want to be on my own against the enemy. Likewise, when you have a volume of leads, not one lead is going to make or break. If you have 150 people to talk to and somebody gives you lip, hangs up on you, it doesn't matter as much than if you had 50 or like 25. It's not as depressing, right? So for me, I want you to work up. This is what we do with our agents. I want you working up to 1,000 plus a week. Maybe all you need is 1,000. Maybe all you need is 750 if you're a really good agent. That's fine. But I had the most consistency and the most peace of mind selling when I was working an ungodly amount of leads, running a lot of presentations, because nothing really mattered, because I had 35 other presentations to run that week off of 80 to 100 direct mail. And it doesn't have to be direct mail, but you get the point. Like, I was set, and when I'm relaxed, I care, but not that much. I run appointments great. Like, not one presentation matters. And that makes me more effective because I'm not desperate. I don't have commission breath, right? Is there a book you would recommend for agency building? That's a great question. Thought about writing one. That's just the time to do it. Because I don't think there's really an agency there. I think there's one agency building book I bought, but it was really more of a PNC based book. I wasn't like, it wasn't like oriented towards life insurance sales. What you're going to find with agency building is probably my content is really good because I talk about specifics. A lot of the agency building content out there is it's very vanilla. It's like, talk to people. Just talk to them. It's great. Just talk to strangers at Walmart. Like, that's the extent of the training you're going to get. But you never hear about chargeback mitigation, training systems, lead generation systems, building your business for a private equity deal later on. Like, you don't a lot of content. There's not a lot of content out there. Is on my channel. Shameless plug to subscribe. But in the life space, not really. Maybe if you can get your hands on some old A.L. Williams stuff. I don't know if I'm sure the Alliance guy had some stuff out there, I've heard, but it's hard to find. Thank you very much. Flea, right? Hey, Flea, where's the red phone that usually it's back there. It's kind of like right there. Right there. It's just in the shadows, right? All right. Traction is the closes I've seen for a business building book. Okay. Oh, a business building book. So if you want to take it to business, I thought you were talking about insurance building. A business building book, I would probably recommend Dan Kennedy's No BS book to People, Profits, and something else. It's a 15-year-old book, but Dan Kennedy's hilarious, and it's a pretty good management book. What else? I watch a lot of Alex Hormozi's old stuff before he started getting really production oriented. If you go back and look at some of the sales team trainings, they're really, really good. How he built some of his outbound marketing systems are really, really good. But beyond that, I'm sure that I've got a bunch of books, as you can see, but I can't recall one in particular that was business building oriented that really had an impact on me. I'm sure there is. I don't know. I think the one mindset book that helped me as a young reading Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I will say that. I would recommend that to any business owner, just because it's it's a good book about, what if the producers of the world revolt? Usually you hear the workers of the world strike. But what if it's the capitalists and the people behind the businesses that make things happen? It's an interesting read, and it puts some perspective in place that I think is helpful. So I'd recommend reading that just to have a perspective shift. Right. What's your YouTube? David Duford. If you just put David Duford into YouTube, you'll see all my stuff. Yeah. So much to do. We'll put that in the pile. Alex Hormozy. He's a younger dude, probably Cody's age. Really interesting guy. But what stands out about him is that he gives away so much stuff for free. And it's like mind-blowing. And it's practical, and it actually works if you apply it. And he's pretty much the only person that I study. I mean, when it comes to sales stuff, right? And running sales teams. I took a lot of his practices, how he runs sales teams. That was the influence behind how we run things internally with recruiting agents, training them, firing them if they're not good. Atlas Shrugged. Yeah, Atlas Shrugged. Like, I don't care. Yeah, sure. No. Alpha Leads. It is a lead program where you get leads at your cost, or at our cost, which is, instead of paying $20-25, you're paying $5 to $8 for a monthly management fee. Right now it's just $500. And the nice thing is you get the quality that comes from self-generated leads without all the work and the headache of managing it. And so you're ending up with a price point probably closer to $8 to $10, but they're high intent, high quality leads that are scalable. And it's revolutionized our telesales agency. We have way more people writing way more business because of it. It's just been enormously successful. Awesome. Okay. Any last questions here before we wrap it up? I got to go eat my chicken and rice. Hungry. I'll give you guys a couple seconds if you want to throw something in the chat. Hey, you're welcome, y'all. Thanks for being here. That was a fast hour. Always goes by fast. Cody, are you operable on the internet?
I believe so.
The Sprinter.
I believe so.
The better internet connection. It's probably Missouri, not the Sprinter, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was great, buddy. It did fly by, man. I was sitting here listening, taking notes. Like, I love this.
Go, man.
It's awesome, buddy. I appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule to hang with us and answer a bunch of questions.
Yeah, real quick, shameless plug, guys. Best place to learn more about me, just go to YouTube, put in David Duford into the YouTube, and go down the bottomless pit of content. If you want to learn more about my agency, go to davidduford.com. Yes, we recruit nationally. Yes, we recruit agents to sell remotely or in person. We have free lead programs. We're all in on training, developing, supporting agents. That's like our forte, whether you're new or experienced or anything in between. So definitely check us out. Okay.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being on tonight.
You got it. All right. I'm going to hop off here. Y'all have a good howdy. Bye. Howdy. Bye. See ya.
Hey, if you enjoyed this, I got another one you're gonna love. It's right there. Click on it. See you in there. I'm so excited for today's CA Power Player podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. We got a special guest. He is back on the channel talking about how to sell life insurance from home. Here's what I love about this person. Okay, I'm telling you, this will be one of the best.